Today I have writer, producer, actor Michael Nikou with me to talk about his feature film Slant. Slant is the debut film from director James Vinson, and it features a killer Australian cast including Sigrid Thornton, Al Mandelis, and Pia Miranda, and of course Michael himself. So Michael, how you going?
I'm well today, thank you. How are you?
That's the way. I thought we'd start by talking about how the project actually came to be. Given you're the writer of the film, deciding to make a feature film, take us through what that process was like and how you developed the screenplay.
It was a long process. Just I should say to start with, because I started writing it about 3 years before we made it,
Yep.
and I just I knew I wanted to. I was an actor primarily. I trained as an actor, and then knew that I wanted to expand my skill set because we work in an industry that sort of demands that. Having just one string to your bow isn't really enough, so it did start off that way, and then of course I grew a genuine passion for writing, and I'd written other things before, shorts, and this feature sort of just kind of had a life of its own, in the sense that I wrote one draft and just thought, okay, cool, I wrote a draft of the film, shared it with some friends, and then wrote another and another, and was coming off the back of a breakup, so I had a lot of time on my hands, and I had a lot of, they say write what you know. And so I felt like I had a lot of family stuff I wanted to get into. And yeah, before I knew it, 3 years later and 17 million drafts later, I had a script that I was like, I think I should make it.
Yeah.
And then that's when the next part of the process started.
And how do you feel it's important, or do you think it's important for actors to be developing their own scripts, like trying to produce their own work? Is that something that, having been through the process now, that you kind of can see and is important to you?
I cannot stress enough to every actor or anyone that's, if you're a producer or a director, but especially actors, just because we're such an oversubscribed for talent pool, so many actors out there and so few jobs. It's imperative, and it's also going to make you a better actor, I think. I think I became a better actor as soon as I started to learn the craft of writing. So I wish, my only regret, I don't have a lot of regrets. I'm one of those people that's like, whatever, don't regret anything. But if I had any regrets, it would be that I didn't start writing earlier. I didn't start writing until I was about 22, 23, which I know is very young. But, if I had started at 18, then maybe I'd have made this movie 3 years earlier.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, awesome. And take us, so back to where you were at before we started working together. So you'd obviously been writing for a certain period of time, but I think even at the point that we met, you'd already raised some finance, or you had some commitment to some finance. So yeah, maybe just take us back to where you were kind of pre us working together.
Well, I was a guy with a script, and I at this point knew I knew I was definitely going to make it. I was just so certain making this movie. But I was very naive and clueless, because at one point I had, done a budget myself on like pages in on my laptop, and I was like, I can make this for like, quite seriously, I have no idea how I possibly thought this, but I was like, I can make it for 70 grand, which is the most laughable thing in the world to think that I at one point thought that was a reality. And but I had raised some money. I had some money of my own. I was like, I'm going to pour my own money in. Why not? It's a passion project, and why shouldn't I put my money where my mouth is? But then as I started to bring more people into the fold, like James, who's my best mate and now the director of the film, and Monique Fisher, who is another dear best friend and the head producer essentially on the film, or one of the head producers on the film, I started learning, okay, maybe this is going to be different. And then eventually, very luckily, a very old friend, a mutual friend of ours, Darius family, who owns PostLab, the post-production house that did the post for Slant, said, I think you should meet with this guy named Alexi. I think he could maybe clue you in on a few things. So then we had a meeting that I was very late to.
You were.
Yeah.
Something to do with your dog, I think, or
I I just remember running up Smith Street with my dog not on. I have a like a farm dog, and he was not on the lead, and we
yeah.
were just both. I was like, "Oh my god, my like movie meeting is going to be a shambles because I'm like 20 minutes late to it." But I did get there, and we had enough time for you to run me through at least the basics of what it takes to produce a feature film in Australia, which was good.
Yeah, and I do want to come back to the team and like how integral that was, I think, to the whole process. But in terms of us deciding to work together, I know from my end, what struck me with you and made me want to work with you was like you'd already gone out there and started raising finance, which not a lot of filmmakers even take that first step, and B, you had the script, which was great, right? So the project was kind of coming together. And then C, I think like I could just tell from that meeting that this film was going to get made one way or the other. So that's for me definitely why I kind of jumped into working together. But take me through the process of what it was like for you meeting me, kind of deciding, all right, let's work together.
Yeah, well, I think the first thing was that it was just very nice to be in the presence of someone who had some knowledge to share and was happy to share it. So that
Yeah,
already put me off on the right path. That I was like, oh, okay, this guy knows a bit more than me. I should probably listen. And you were very gracious to sort of just like sit me down and not sit me down. That sounds weird, but
yeah,
like you just like educated me on the realities of what it meant to produce a feature film. And you'd done it a lot before, and you were pretty patient with a lot of dumb questions I may have had. And so I actually don't think I ever questioned not. It wasn't like I was like, oh, this guy, yeah, knows what he's talking about. And it felt like almost an obvious choice that if you were going to say yes, that
yeah,
I should say yes, because here was a production company that helps filmmakers, and you had the exact skill set that I was missing,
mm,
um, because as you said, I had the script and I had some money, and I was starting to because I had some actors some of the leads are
yeah,
good friends of mine. So the creative side of things, I was already sort of in motion, but there was this other side to filmmaking that I just was so in the dark about.
yeah.
So it felt right.
Yeah, and I think like some filmmakers, when they're meeting with like more experienced producers or EPs, might worry like, oh my god, are they going to like steal the project creatively, or are they going to like completely take over it? I think what was good with how we set it up is just like it was very clear from the start. The creative side is like all you guys. We'll help you with the business side. Yes, there's crossover. Yes, we're gonna like speak to each other about it, but it was very clearly kind of like delineated in terms of the roles. Do you think that that's something that helped kind of get the relationship off on the right foot to begin with? And is there any advice here you give to filmmakers if they're dealing with more experienced producers or EPs?
Yeah, 100%. It's funny. Like I didn't even think of it because the relationship started off that way. But now that you mention it, I guess it could have gone another way, right? Like had you had a
Yeah,
different attitude, and there's probably a lot of producers out there that really do want to. I don't want to use the word interfere because producers have every right to be across all aspects of the filmmaking process.
yeah,
But you were very happy to help and give advice when it came to some of the creative stuff. I remember you were just like, look, because we were still redrafting, we were still in
yeah,
the
yeah,
couple final stages of redrafting the script. So you were happy to point me in the direction of some more experienced writers who would help take another look at the script. But at no point were you like, change this, or like, I never got the script back with a
yeah,
bunch of red pen all over it, with all of Alexi's notes, which was nice. And yeah, I think actually now that I think about it, I probably did take it for granted that you didn't at any point try and push any agenda of what your ideas were. It was just a given from the beginning. So I guess yes, lucky in that sense that I didn't pair with a producer who wanted to really change our vision. So
yeah,
that was and my advice is that to any other filmmakers out there, that you do still have to listen to producers that have had more experience than you. So even though, for instance, you and Exile are more the I don't want to say admin side, but like the
For sure.
nuts and bolts, getting the movie made type side of production, you still have valuable advice. So I don't think you should just like shut it out. Whenever
Yeah.
had some advice and like, hey, I think do this or whatever, we were always open ears.
Yeah.
Um, so don't get too caught up in the I'm the creative and they're the producer and they have nothing to add to the creative side. Just like, keep your ears open because sometimes you might find that happy little accidents happen and also people will see things from an outsider's perspective that you might
Yeah.
not see.
Totally. So let's chat about the team because I think that the three of you, like you, James, and Mon, were really just like the creative force and even just like the force behind the film. So do you want to run me through? Obviously, you know James, but just how you guys formed that team, and just I guess how important it was to you to have those two people by your side, really at every step to help you make the film.
Yeah. Well, they are like my heart and soul. James and Mon, if you're watching, I love you. They are the best. James and I have known each other since we were 12 years old. So that
Yeah,
is,
wow.
just an ancient friendship. And Mon and I have known each other. We've like run in the same circles since high school. We didn't actually really properly become friends until the film,
Cool.
but we knew each other. We'd run in the same circles, done workshops together as actors because Mon's also an actor, and James had directed a beautiful play that Mon had produced and acted in. And when it came, we knew we needed another producer because there was just no way that I was going to act, write, and produce the film, and James was going to direct and produce the film. We needed someone else, and James suggested Mon, and I was like, she's never going to go for it. Like, there's no way. And we were in the middle of a lockdown, so
Yeah.
James and will have this vivid memory forever. FaceTimed her, and spoke to her, and she took all of about a day to say yes. She was like, it's a very intriguing offer. And anyone that knows Mon knows that she adores a challenge and is one of the hardest workers ever. So, Mon decided within 24 hours that she would produce the film. And then we had our little trio formed. And together we were, as you said, the creative force behind everything. And every decision from, as I said, we were redrafting the script, everything we went through together
Yeah.
the team, which was like I never want to let go of that because it was a really wonderful to find that family.
Yeah, awesome. And so teams formed, we're on board as well. So take us through some of the ways that you actually raised finance for the film, because there was private equity in there was tax rebates. Do you want to just run us through how you went from having a bit of finance, putting in a bit of money yourself, to then raising almost 850,000 in terms of production budget?
Yeah. And we should also mention Tessa, the other fifth member of our team, but that's more your camp. But just because we love Tessa, we want to give her a shout out.
100%. Shout out to Tessa.
Shout out to Tessa. We love you, Tessa. Well, so it really is about, at least from my perspective, it's about snowballing,
Yeah.
when it comes to raising those finances. So I had been saving up for years with the vision that I would make. Even before I actually thought of the idea for Slant, because I'm a little bit psychic, I like to think, I knew that I was going to one day, like I wasn't ever the sort of guy that was like, I'm going to save and get a deposit for a house. I knew that whatever my life savings were going to go to, they were going to go to something creative.
Yeah.
And so I had saved for years, years and years and years and years, working 3, 5 jobs, a million jobs. And so I had some money that I put in. And James, the director, also really wanted to make it a reality. And so he also had money that he wanted to put in. And so we had a small little nest egg. It was something to start with, which meant that when we then began the process of going out to third party investors, people that in some cases didn't know us from a bar of soap, or like a friend of a friend that we got recommended, or they were, two of the investors were old film school friends of James's from 10 years ago that James got in touch with, that, he used to have this like little lunch once a month with them or something. And it was a lot easier then because we had decided to put in a bit of our own money, which I know is a bit scary. Some people say don't invest your own projects, but I didn't put in all my own money, but I did put in a substantial amount.
Yeah.
It was a lot better to pitch to these investors now that we didn't know, being able to show them that there was just a little something there to start with. It's harder to be like, we have $0 and we needed 500,000 or whatever it is,
Yeah.
it's a lot easier to be like, we've already got 50. We
Yeah.
only need however much more. And so with each, and we started off with our innermost circle and
Yeah.
then expanded out further and further. About 7 of my friends who aren't very wealthy all chucked in $2,000 each. So
Yeah.
before I knew it, I had another 14 grand. And
Yeah.
so it was just about stacking that with my close friends and some family members as well, myself,
Yeah.
and then topping that off with these people that were the harder gets. They were the harder sells, right? Because
Yeah.
your friends are going to throw in $2,000 for you, or your parents will be like, "All right, we believe in you. We'll chuck in a little bit too," because they could see that we had put in our own money, so they were like, "All right, we'll help."
Yeah.
So you got to pull out all the stops, and don't be ashamed to ask a few friends, ask a couple of family members and uncles and aunts, especially that rich aunt if you have one, and then once you've exhausted all that, then my advice would be to tackle those people. We had an international investor that was, I thought, like they were never gonna come on board, because I was like, why would this woman from Hong Kong who doesn't know us invest in the film? But James had a connection, and
Yeah.
we pitched, and we had money, and she jumped on board. So
yeah. So it sounds like you started with like that core, and then through the core, that just led you to more people and more people, more people, more people. Is that right?
exactly. And just don't be afraid to ask. The worst that can happen is people will say no. And we had plenty of people say no. So many people that decided not to invest in the film
Yeah.
that I thought should have, for whatever reason. So just you got to get out there and ask and pitch. Do a really good pitch.
Cool. And then let's run through actually producing the film. So you raised the private. We then managed to get a rebate, which
Oh,
we have in
sorry.
Australia.
Like
Should touch on that.
thing, the 40% of the budget that comes back, which is all Exile, which I have no clue how to do. So I was too busy thinking of like the private finance that we raised. But yes, Exile getting us the certificate from Screen Oz for the producer offset rebate. Maybe you can talk more about that, but that's obviously huge, because that's 40% of your budget that you get back as a tax rebate. So
Oh, for sure. I mean, and all I'll say to that is, if you're in a country, you're in a state, or you're close to one of those where there's a rebate that is, really anywhere over like 25%, I think you've got to try and access it as an indie producer, because it's just a huge part of the finance.
Slant wouldn't get made without it. That Slant would not exist. It wouldn't. Yes, wouldn't have gotten made.
Yeah, and I can say the same of so many of our films. So private, tax rebate, films financed, COVID hits.
Yes, it did.
So run us through that, because I think we were ready to go at one point, and we had to delay significantly.
We were looking at shooting April of 2020.
Yeah.
So that's what we thought we were doing.
Yeah.
And then COVID hit. Again, remember this all vividly. I was on the phone to you pretty quickly, and we were emailing very, very quickly. And I was pitching to an investor that day, which is another really funny experience. A very prominent, wealthy person from Melbourne that obviously I won't reveal the identity of. But I was just like, am I still going to do this pitch when there's clearly like the proverbial shit hitting the fan all across the world? But I did, and they decided not to invest, shockingly. But we had COVID, and I mean, we then didn't shoot until February, March of 2021. So there was a few ups and downs, and obviously being in Victoria, we had we had one extended lockdown. Another one happened after the film was shot, luckily. And we even had a lockdown that took place as a snap lockdown that was 5 days long, but it took place in the middle of our pre-production.
Yeah. I definitely remember that.
Yeah. Because I went catatonic for only like a couple hours, but I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. Because at that point we had such a lucky run of in Melbourne being like zero cases, because we were, that sort of place in Australia.
Yeah.
But we still made it. We had rules and regulations, and we wore masks, and we sanitized, and we socially distanced, and we did all the things, and we still made the movie.
And I'm guessing the production was an absolute breeze.
It was so easy. Nothing went wrong. So many things went wrong, including one of our leads. And I mean, like, major lead got hospitalized with food poisoning, not from craft services, I should mention, from a takeaway joint in Footscray that I also won't reveal the identity of, although I do know it. Yeah, and we had to, I rewrote the ending of the film. That's how bad it was looking, because this actor just could not. And when I say food poisoning, like, you think, oh, 24-hour bug, but this person got a stomach infection. They were admitted and readmitted and taken out of 2 different hospitals. It was not getting better, and it was also, we shot the film fairly chronologically. We had an amazing first AD who scheduled it just like almost perfectly for us actors and creatives. And so the final act of the film, which is a lot happens in it, and it is a big, like, there's a lot of set pieces, and it requires almost the entire ensemble cast. We couldn't have one of these major players potentially, so I rewrote the ending of the film, and I kind of fell in love with the new ending as well. I was like, "Oh, this is very surrealist. We're going to Cannes with this or something," and called 2 of the actors that I needed for this rewrite, and was like, "I need you to, like, come and join the film." Who thought they had wrapped the movie? They were like, "We're done. We've shot our shot."
Yeah.
Anyway, luckily this actor got better, and we could go with the original ending, so the movie stayed intact. But that was just one of the things. We had locations dropping out last second, and having to, wrangle all sorts of things, and it was a period movie as well. We had to always keep an eye out for. One day we had a modern Land Rover that just, like, had parked in a spot that it was not meant to park in because we had blocked it off, and we were like, I can't have a movie set in 1999 with, like, this, like, very modern soccer mum car. So it was just like from major things like lockdowns to tiny things like modern cars in the way, producing is so difficult.
So do you want to do it again?
Evidence of my masochistic personality is that I do want to do it again, shockingly, because it was very fun as well. It's hard, but it's really fun. And luckily I have the creative outlet of writing and acting as well. So I get a bit of I get the best of all the worlds.
Yeah. And so where's the film at now?
We have only the final sound mix to go, and there is a couple of VFX shots that are being perfected. We have an array of those, and there's 2 that we just weren't perfectly happy with. So we thought, screw it, we gotta make sure they're perfect.
Yeah, I think delivery's in about a month or so, right?
Yeah, it's very soon. And then, I mean, we've already started to apply to a couple film festivals, and hopefully have a film festival run, and then release it theatrically in Australia, at least, and then obviously some sort of online release or streaming. I don't know. This is another part of the process that I don't know much about. This is, again, pivoting back to Exile, who knows this far more than I do.
Yeah, I mean, and how have you? Oh, I mean, yeah. How do you feel at learning the finance side, the business side, now to the distribution side, where the festivals run? Like, how do you feel that has, I guess, increased your skills as a producer, but maybe even like your ability to assess projects, to run a production, like all those things?
Yeah, I mean, especially when you compare it to how little I knew beforehand, it's now I feel like I could even read a feature script and know ballpark how much it might cost, at least. Obviously, budgets are scalable. Another thing that I've learned, there's the $2 million version of a movie, there's a $5 million version, there's a $10 and $20 million version. So definitely that's something that I have been able to develop, a skill set that I've been able to develop throughout this process. And sort of assess as well, I guess, based on now having some experience talking with distributors and sales agents, now that we're getting that part of the process, knowing what sells and what's commercially viable and which aspects of production are important. Cast, majorly important, which is a shame because, those cast members can be expensive if they're really, really prominent, but it's just how it is. So yeah, and just knowing things like scheduling and not knowing them fully, but just having enough of an idea that I at least now could oversee it. I feel like on my next project, I could work with another producer who's probably a little bit better at that stuff, but still be able to have conversations with them and be valuable to them as well. Even if I'm not the one actually writing the budget or writing the schedule, I can converse and have that interface in that way and be valuable to the team in that way, I think.
And do you think you'll take some of those lessons even into the writing process of the next film?
Definitely in terms of what I think, the stuff I was saying about like what sells.
Yeah,
Even though, you know, you want to stay pure as an artist and you want to write that story that's coming from a really true raw place, you do have to keep in mind, and this is actually something that I did keep in mind with Slant. I always wanted to write something that I felt was like accessible to mainstream
yeah,
audiences. I didn't want to write something that was just so indulgent and so for me that nobody else could even understand it, because they'd be like, God, this guy's such a narcissist. He just wrote about himself the whole time. And I did write about myself and my family and my issues, but I tried to set them against the backdrop of something that I thought was going to be like sort of a popcorn entertainment type vibe, I guess.
yeah. Yeah, cool.
And I will do
And
that. I will keep doing that, I think.
nice. And yeah, any advice for filmmakers or top advice for filmmakers considering either working with us at Exile or considering working, like teaming up with a more experienced producer or EP to get their film up?
Yeah, I mean, I have so much advice that could fill its own interview, I think. The first is like have a very clear vision of what you know you have to offer and come to the table with as much as you can, because which means, you know, making sure the script is in the perfect place, even though we still had a couple of redrafts and tweaks before, you know, we
Yeah,
made the film. The script was in a position where it was producible, so you
for
don't want to
sure.
shoot your shot too early and get in contact when the script's just not ready.
Yeah,
And yeah, have a clear vision of so if say it's Exile, you want to be able to come to you, Alexia, and be like, this is what I've got. Not only do you want to show the script, but yes, what finance do you have in place, if any at all, or if you don't, that's fine, but just be clear about that. No, I have no money and I have no idea how to get any. Can you
yeah,
advise how I might go about that? Um, and just definitely have to stress remaining open. And in terms of what advice more experienced producers who have, I mean, how many films have you produced now? 6, 7 features, I mean,
Oof. I
lots.
think so. Yeah, 7 or 8 now as a lead producer, and yeah, financed many more.
Yeah. So, and I had produced this many. So you have to, I mean, not that I think I ever had an ego, but I definitely was aware to like check it at the door, because
Yeah,
you're going to maybe be told some things you don't want to hear, like your film. I mean, I don't want to say this, that your film's unproducible. I never got told that, luckily, but you just have to listen to the people that have done it before, because, well, they've done it before. So
yeah,
what have you got to lose? If they've done it 7 times, they've probably learned something.
yeah,
In the same way that I've done it 1 time and I've learned something. So
for sure.
that's what it is.
Cool. And what's next?
What's next? Well, I have another script that is nearing the final stages of its first draft, which I feel
Nice.
excited enough about that I think I could maybe develop it, but that'll depend on, you know, 1,000 things. And I've written things in the past that I've shelved, but I've got another sort of black comedy satire all about real estate, because everybody loves real estate. And if we're lucky enough and it does well, I have plans for Slant too. So, you know, if we that I mean that's
Watch
going to
out.
require Slant to do incredibly well to get it backed for a sequel. But we made Slant with the intention that it was not the end of the story, although it is a self-contained story and it could stand alone. So they're the two things on my mind.
Yeah, awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for jumping on. It was great to chat through everything.
Thank you.
And everyone, keep an eye out for Slant. We'll include some links in the video below so you can check it out. Michael, thank you, and no doubt we'll be in touch very soon.
Very well. I'll text you in an hour.
Sounds good. All right, mate.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye. See ya.